London, England, July 18th, 1977, 10:30 a.m. Bob Marley sat in Dr. William Harrison's office at Harley Street Medical Center, expecting routine tour medical clearance. What he got instead was news that would change everything, and a choice that would define the rest of his life. If you love discovering the untold stories behind music history's most incredible moments, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell because we uncover the hidden gems that shape the legends we know today. The small dark spot under Bob's right big toe had been bothering him for months. It started as what seemed like a soccer injury, a simple bruise from kicking the ball too hard during a pickup game in Jamaica. Bob had ignored it, assuming it would heal like every other injury he'd sustained over the years. But it didn't heal. Instead, it grew darker, more irregular, sometimes bleeding without explanation. Rita had been urging him to see a doctor for weeks, but Bob was in the middle of the Exodus tour, the most successful tour of his career. Sold-out shows across Europe, thousands of fans singing along to every word. There was no time for doctors, until now. "Mr. Marley," Dr. Harrison had said, examining the spot with a magnifying lens, "I need to take a biopsy of this lesion. It doesn't look like a typical injury." Bob had shrugged. "It's just a bruise, Doc. From football." "Perhaps. But let's be certain." The biopsy took 5 minutes. Dr. Harrison sent the sample to the lab with a rush order. "Results will be ready in an hour. Why don't you wait? I'd rather discuss this in person than over the phone." Bob checked his watch. The concert at Rainbow Theatre was that evening. 8,000 tickets sold. Fans traveling from across the UK to see him perform. But he had time. An hour later, Dr. Harrison returned with a file in his hands and a grave expression on his face. 11:30 a.m., the diagnosis. "Mr. Marley, please sit down." Bob remained standing. "Just tell me, Doc." Dr. Harrison took a breath. "The biopsy results show malignant melanoma. It's an aggressive form of skin cancer that has likely been developing for several months." The words hit Bob like a physical blow. Cancer. The word that no one wanted to hear, especially not at 32 years old, especially not when everything in his life was finally coming together. "How bad is it?" Bob asked quietly. "It's serious. The melanoma appears to have penetrated deep into the tissue. Without immediate treatment, it will spread to other parts of your body." Bob sat down heavily. "What kind of treatment?" "We need to amputate the toe immediately. It's the only way to prevent the cancer from spreading. After that, we'll need to monitor you closely. Possibly chemotherapy if it has already begun to metastasize." The room went silent. Bob stared at the floor, processing words that seemed impossible to accept. "Amputate my toe? I know it sounds drastic, but Mr. Marley, this cancer will kill you if we don't act quickly. You need surgery within the next few days." Bob looked up at Dr. Harrison. "Doc, I have a concert tonight. 8,000 people are expecting me." Dr. Harrison shook his head. "Mr. Marley, you need to cancel your tour. This is a matter of life and death." "My concert is also a matter of life and death. Different kind of life and death." "I'm sorry?" Bob stood up slowly. "Doctor, you don't understand. Those people out there, they're not just coming to hear music. They're coming for hope. They're coming because my songs tell them they matter, that their struggles matter, that love is stronger than hate. If I cancel tonight, I'm telling them that fear is stronger than hope." Dr. Harrison leaned forward. "Mr. Marley, with all due respect, your fans would understand if you need medical treatment for cancer." Bob shook his head. "It's not about understanding, Doc. It's about what I represent. If Bob Marley gets scared and runs away the day he finds out he has cancer, what message does that send to people fighting their own battles? It sends the message that you're human." "No," Bob said quietly. "It sends the message that the battle is already lost." 12 p.m. The decision. Bob walked out of the medical center into the London afternoon. His world completely changed, but his face showing none of the turmoil inside. Tony Welsh, his security chief, was waiting by the car. "Everything all right, Bob? You were in there a long time." Bob got into the car without speaking. Tony started the engine, heading back to the hotel. "Bob?" "Tonight's show," Bob said finally. "Make sure everything is perfect." Tony glanced in the rearview mirror. Something in Bob's tone was different. "Of course, it always is. You feeling all right?" Bob closed his eyes. "Tony, if today was your last day on Earth, how would you want to spend it?" "What kind of question is that?" "Just answer." Tony thought for a moment. "With my family, I guess. People I love." Bob nodded. "Tonight, I'm going to be with 8,000 people I love." 3 p.m. The band meeting. Back at the hotel, Bob called together the Wailers, Carlton Barrett on drums, his brother Aston Family Man Barrett on bass, Tyrone Downey on keyboards, Al Anderson and Junior Marvin on guitars. They gathered in Bob's suite expecting a normal pre-show meeting. "I want to change tonight's set list," Bob announced. The band looked at each other. Bob never changed set lists on the day of a show. "What are you thinking?" asked Family Man. "I want to play longer. 2.5 hours instead of 90 minutes. "Bob, that's almost double our usual show," Tyrone said. "You sure you're up for that?" Bob looked at his bandmates, men who had been with him since the beginning, who had shared the struggles and the triumphs. "Tonight might be the most important show we ever play. I need you all to give everything you have." "We always do," Junior said. "No, more than always. Tonight, I need you to play like it's the last time we'll ever play together." The room fell quiet. There was something in Bob's voice, something final that none of them could identify, but all of them felt. "Bob, is everything all right?" Al asked. Bob forced a smile. "Everything's irie, brother. Just want to give London something special." 4 p.m., alone with his thoughts. In his dressing room at Rainbow Theatre, Bob sat alone, looking at his feet. The right toe that Dr. Harrison wanted to amputate was throbbing with pain. Pain he'd been ignoring for months, but that now seemed to pulse with each heartbeat. Cancer. The word kept echoing in his mind. He thought about his children, Ziggy, Stephen, Damien, all of them still so young. He thought about Rita, about his mother Cedella back in Jamaica. He thought about all the music still inside him, all the messages still undelivered. But mostly he thought about the people gathering in the theater just beyond his dressing room door. People who had saved money to buy tickets, who had traveled hours to be there, who would sing along to every word because his music had touched their lives in some way. How could he face them knowing what he knew? How could he sing about hope when he'd just received the most hopeless news possible? The answer came to him as he picked up his guitar and played a few quiet chords of Redemption Song. He would face them the same way he'd always faced the world, with truth, with love, with the absolute conviction that music could heal what medicine couldn't touch. 12 p.m. Showtime. When Bob walked onto the Rainbow Theatre stage that night, the 8,000-person crowd erupted in cheers that seemed to shake the building. They had no idea they were looking at a man who had received a death sentence that morning. They saw only Bob Marley, dreadlocks flowing, smile radiant, guitar in hand, ready to take them on a musical journey. "Good evening, London," Bob called out, his voice strong and clear. "Tonight we're going to celebrate life." The word life hit him differently as he said it. Every moment on that stage was now precious in a way it had never been before. Bob opened with Trenchtown Rock, and from the first note something was different. His playing was more intense, more urgent. His voice carried an emotion that the audience couldn't identify but could definitely feel. As the show progressed, Bob poured everything into each song. During No Woman, No Cry, he closed his eyes and sang as if he was trying to memorize every word, every note, every feeling. The crowd sang along, their voices joining his in perfect harmony. 9:30 p.m. The pain. By the middle of the set, the pain in Bob's toe was becoming unbearable. Each step, each movement sent jolts of agony through his foot. But he didn't slow down. If anything, he pushed harder, as if he could overcome the cancer through sheer force of will and musical passion. During Get Up, Stand Up, Bob's voice cracked slightly as he sang the lines. Get up, stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up, don't give up the fight. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here he was, telling people to fight, while he was facing the biggest fight of his life. 10:15 p.m. The moment of truth. Then came Redemption Song. Bob had performed this song hundreds of times, but tonight it felt like he was singing it for the first time. As he sat alone on stage with just his acoustic guitar, the lyrics took on new meaning. Old pirates, yes, they rob I sold I to the merchant ships. Bob thought about how cancer was like those pirates, an invader trying to steal his life, his time with his family, his ability to share his music with the world. But my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. His voice grew stronger as he sang these lines. Maybe Dr. Harrison was right about the medical facts. Maybe the cancer would spread. Maybe he was living on borrowed time. But in this moment, on this stage, with these people, his hand was made strong. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom, 'cause all I ever have redemption songs? The entire theater joined in, 8,000 voices singing about redemption and freedom. Bob looked out at the faces in the crowd, young and old, black and white, all united by music that transcended whatever differences they might have had in the outside world. This was why he couldn't cancel. This was why he had to be here tonight. Because in this room, for these few hours, everyone was free. Everyone was redeemed. Everyone was part of something bigger than their individual struggles. 11:00 p.m., the extended set. True to his word, Bob kept the show going far longer than usual. He played deep cuts, rarities, songs he hadn't performed in years. The audience didn't seem to mind. If anything, they were energized by the unexpected marathon performance. During One Love, Bob's voice broke with emotion. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel all right. As he sang, Bob realized that this moment, this connection with thousands of strangers who had become family through music, was exactly where he was supposed to be. Not in a hospital bed, not in surgery, not hiding from the diagnosis he'd received that morning. He was supposed to be here, sharing love, spreading hope, proving that music really could triumph over fear. 11:45 p.m., the finale. Bob closed the show with Exodus, his voice hoarse but still powerful. Exodus, movement of Jah people. As he sang about movement and journey, Bob understood that he was beginning a different kind of exodus. Not just the tour, but a personal journey through whatever time he had left. He would face the cancer, deal with the medical treatment, make the hard decisions about surgery and therapy. But he would do it all on his own terms, in his own time, with the knowledge that he had chosen hope over fear on the day that mattered most. When the last note faded, the crowd's applause was deafening. They cheered for nearly 10 minutes, calling Bob back for encore after encore. Finally, exhausted but fulfilled, Bob took his final bow. Midnight. Backstage. In his dressing room, Bob collapsed into a chair, the adrenaline finally wearing off. The pain in his toe was excruciating now, and he could barely walk. Tony Welsh found him there, head in his hands. "Bob, that was incredible. But you look like you're in pain. What's wrong?" Bob looked up at his friend and security chief. "Tony, if I tell you something, can you keep it between us for now?" "Of course. This morning I found out I have cancer. Melanoma. Doctor wants to cut off my toe." Tony's face went white. "Jesus, Bob. That's why you wanted to change the set list. That's why tonight felt so final." Tony nodded. "Are you going to have the surgery?" Bob was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. But I know I couldn't have lived with myself if I'd canceled tonight. Those people needed this show. And I needed to prove to myself that cancer doesn't get to decide how I live my life. So what happens now? Bob stood up slowly, wincing from the pain. Now I go face whatever comes next. But at least I know that when it mattered most, I chose courage over fear. I chose music over medicine. I chose hope over despair. The aftermath. Bob Marley did eventually undergo surgery, but not until weeks later, after completing several more shows on the tour. The surgery was partially successful, but the cancer had already begun to spread. Bob continued touring and recording for the next 4 years, creating some of his most powerful music during his battle with the disease. He never spoke publicly about the diagnosis he received on July 18, 1977, or about the choice he made to perform that night. But those who were close to him always said that something changed in Bob's performances after London. There was an intensity, an urgency, a depth of emotion that hadn't been there before. Tony Welsh later revealed the story in a memoir. Bob taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to do what's right despite the fear. He was terrified that morning. But when evening came, he didn't let that terror define him.